We lead off the news today with the conversation about the news and where people in South Florida are getting it. Because there are layers of options, we know that. Traditional broadcast channels or streaming, like how you are seeing this show right now. Available on a big screen or even on your phone. Yep, newspapers and radio, yeah, they're still around. And there's this whole new world of non-traditional media like TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube, and of course podcasts. So there's plenty of a landscape there now. Joining me today off the top are three Gen Zers. All say they plan to be journalists in their careers, so I'm eager to hear what they have to say about what they think the future of this business holds. Pietro Romano is a freshman at Miami-Dade College studying communications and journalism. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Also with us is Julian Davis, a senior at FIU studying broadcast journalism, and Bryce Johnson, a senior at Nova Southeastern University. He's also editor-in-chief of the school paper, The Current. Thank you all for being here today. So let me start by asking the most basic question, and Julian, I'm going to start with you.
Go right ahead.
Where do you get most of your news from right now?
I get most of my news online, whether that's like Instagram, sometimes even YouTube and Snapchat. I also get news from like Apple Plus, like the notifications that pop on my phone. And yeah, that's where I get my news.
You just
mostly
put a dagger in my heart because you didn't say, I watch you on TV every day, Jim.
Well,
on
I do
TV.
watch you on TV. My mom
Okay.
watches you in the evening time, so it's like, yes, I see Jim Barry on TV.
Okay,
Yes.
nice recovery there, Julian. But Pietro, that's kind of typical, isn't it? That your generation pretty much gets the news right here.
Yes, exactly. And for me, I feel like honestly the most reliable sources would be news channels, watching you on TV, you know, searching on big search engines, for example, Google, Microsoft Edge. For me, I do get my news on Instagram sometimes. I don't use TikTok, might be a hot take, but I do get news from YouTube. But honestly, for me as a journalist, I usually get my news from sources or from big search engines like Google and Microsoft Edge.
So, Bryce, you've heard what they said. Can you trust what you read or get on social media?
Well, sometimes I think you can't trust it because people online, they kind of fabricate stuff a lot. So what I would do is just like double check it, like check with other sources, even check with news outlets to see like if the information is accurate.
So a traditional TV journalist like me, how do I reach viewers like you, Pietro?
So I would say since now we use so much social media, TikTok and YouTube, I would say that maybe if you post something over there, do those 1-minute videos, those get really famous, those go out there and, you know, get lots of views. So I would
Hook
say
people like that.
Exactly. So I would say that this is something that catches the eye of the younger generation. But for me, I usually get my news from other sources.
Yeah.
So
now, Julian, when you go to your phone or Google or wherever, are you reading articles or are you just reading little snippets like 1 or 2 sentences or paragraphs just to get sort of the headlines?
So it depends on the topic that's published. If it's something that I'm really interested in, like environmental topics or social issues, I would read a long-formed article. But if it's something like, let's say like a crime story or a politics story, I would read a snippet, like just get the basic general information, and then for other stories I'll read more into it, then check other sources and stuff.
Bryce, are smartphones making the consumption of news easier for your generation or less easy?
I feel like it does make it easier because like without a smartphone, you may have to like catch the news when it's on your TV, or you may have to go out to find a newspaper.
Oh, what a terrible thing! You actually have to sit down and watch the news. I'm kidding you. Go ahead.
But like with the smartphone, it's just like you have the news like right in your hand, ready to access. Although, I guess with that comes like more information that is like kind of wrong. So you have to sift through it more carefully.
What about the trust factor today, guys, in terms of the media in general? Because I've seen studies that indicate that a large chunk of people now don't really feel they can trust the mass media. Pietro?
the mass media, you mean like social media or the news channels?
Good point. I think they mean traditional media, quite honestly.
Traditional media?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that it's a very reliable source I feel like it depends because people always think that there is a certain bias. But for me, it had always been a very reliable source, that and articles, you know. So for me, I think that it's extremely reliable. So.
Yeah, we're looking at the traditional media. In fact, this is our station now. We're looking at a clip of Elliot Rodriguez and Lauren Pastrana, our two main anchors. And so you guys don't really do what we call appointment TV anymore. Hey, the 6 o'clock news is on. I'm going to sit down and watch the news at 6 o'clock. Or do you?
I actually, well, yes, I do. I watched David Muir. I love how he presents the news for ABC World News Tonight. But I feel like since many people in my generation are constantly on the move, we're always on our smartphones. We're always like, going from point A to point B, sitting at home at TV, watching for like a certain time of the day can be kind of inconvenient. So if we're like, we're at work or we're out with friends and we get like, a news blurb, like a notification on our phones, like, yeah, now you can read this on the go while we're getting our coffee or out on the jog or whatnot. It's very mobile, it's very accessible. I feel like people like having those options.
Bryce, here's my question, since you're the newspaper guy. Do you think that leaves people informed?
I think with having like that access to that information, like all of it, it makes people like not want to maybe read it as thoroughly because like they can just kind of like glance at it. Like if you're going on Instagram, just swiping through all those posts, news posts, you're not like looking at it carefully.
It's like getting the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
Right, but as opposed to really studying, Pietra.
Yeah, and sometimes people, like, I see a lot of this with my friends. Sometimes they just read, for example, someone posts a not so trustworthy post, and then they leave a comment and they instantly believe it. So for me, I feel like you always have to double check. You always have to keep an eye, especially when it comes to social media.
All right, well, I've asked you guys enough questions. Since I'm the old school head here, I'm going to let each of you guys ask me one question because I have some concerns about the business and where it's going, but I'm eager and happy to see that you guys are interested. So fire away real quick. Who wants to go first?
So I want to ask, where do you see this industry in the future? How do you see it? Do you see it growing? Do you see social media taking it over? I really wanted to know.
Here's what I think. I think that no matter where you get the news, traditional, non-traditional, whatever, I think there's always room for good storytelling. And the bottom line is, I think all of us journalists will tell you, especially broadcast journalists will tell you that we are journalists, but we're storytellers. And so we're always looking to tell interesting stories about people. And so I think as long as you have that skill, as long as you can write, I think people will want to continue to have the thirst for knowledge, whether it's on this little box that we call television now, on your phone, or in some other thing that's invented now that we can't even recognize. So that's what I hope.
I have a question for you. So, you've been in the business for a very long time. That's amazing. You've been in a time when journalism was highly trusted, I feel like, and now we've come to a time when journalism has been under attack by authority figures all over the world.
Yep.
How, in your opinion, do you think, as us as upcoming journalists, can we earn the trust back of our audience?
Simple. Tell the truth. Bottom line, put the truth first and hope people recognize it. And you're right, I think that is a big danger. And if people tend to believe what seems to be unbelievable, it seems to make our job that much more difficult. But I think you have to believe that the truth will win, that people want the honest to goodness truth, whatever that is. And sadly, I think especially that's true in times of crisis. And so I'm not wishing for a crisis, but I think that's really when journalists shine. When there's a hurricane coming, for example, people aren't interested in opinions about climate change or not. They want to know, am I going to be safe? What do I need to do to be safe? How bad is this storm going to be? So they're interested in people like us who can communicate effectively and telling them exactly what the truth is.
So generative AI is getting more advanced nowadays.
Oh boy, I knew that question was coming.
And it's like it can make photos, people that look real but like never happened. So my question is like, what role do you think generative AI can play in the future of journalism?
That is a very scary question. In fact, one of the first things we did on this show was a topic on artificial intelligence, and we put me into an AI program, and the virtual Jim came out, and it was kind of scary. It wasn't quite like me, but it was pretty close. I think we're already seeing that now in terms of people using AI to gather information quickly. And I would say the same thing that I I said to Julian that at the end of the day, I think there are layers of depth of reporting that I don't think necessarily that AI is going to find, nuances that AI isn't necessarily going to be able to interpret. So I'm going to believe in the power of humanity, and that ultimately we have to trust in the fact that people will see through what's missing and what isn't. It's almost like you know, when you're making a good soup. This doesn't taste quite the same as the way Grandma made it. You add that little bit of extra, then they'll realize it's authentic. And I think that's the same thing. I think the human touch is something that we'll never lose. And so if you continue the human touch, and if you continue to seek the truth, and if you continue to tell good stories, guys, I think you guys will be just fine down the road.
Hopefully.
Okay?
Hopefully.